Hello fellow egoists! Today we're looking at Niko and how he may become the messiah who will help Ubers awaken. To understand why Ubers can currently awaken and need a messiah, we have to look at Snuffy's philosophy. Ubers works as a company with Snuffy as the boss. In that sense, the players' egos are limited. For people who enjoy Barrow, you must have felt this. He isn't the king that does everything his way that you learn to love. Instead, he's simply used as a finisher for Ubers, and the whole unpredictability of his game plan has been destroyed. In that sense, players can't awaken as they are used as limbs to Snuffy's tactics. And most importantly, Snuffy doesn't allow players to fight through the despair. A big point made by the manga is that big awakenings happen when one fights through the despair, giving up on their current way and instead looks for another. The problem is that Snuffy cuts part of that process. Normally you would fight through the despair on the spot and find a new way. Snuffy instead asks you to put responsibility on him, making it that instead of finding a new way, you wait for Snuffy to give it to you, after the match is over at that, which is similar to this quote when Ego talks about normies not giving up and instead doubling down on their path. Well, you could argue, there is one thing that's for sure. Snuffy's philosophy stops players from evolving on the spot and so the whole field as a whole. This seems to stem from the fact that he sealed a part of his ego when his best friend died. We see that his aura rarely appears, but when it does, it appears to be a phoenix. Pretty ironic in that sense. The really important thing is that his aura fully appeared only when he needed to go off-plane and ad-lib to beat Isagi, seemingly pissed off at that fact from the look on his face. So here, it seems that when following his ego, Snuffy could be like a phoenix, dying and being reborn immediately, similarly to Isagi, though he gave up on that aspect by following his job's philosophy. In that sense, when Ubers is strong, they are truly a force to be reckoned with, but when players manage to find flaws in Uber's game plan and evolve like Isagi does, then Ubers can do nothing but watch. But what player didn't do that and instead took matters into his own hands when seeing that things were not going his way? Niko. He followed his ego even at the expense of Snuffy's tactics, and thanks to that, not only stopped Isagi but also made himself evolve, developing metavision not only for him but also Aiku, pure dynamism that allowed them to beat Isagi even if Kaiser scored in the end. Couple that with his cover and we already have a proof that Niko is currently the only one who can take matters into his own hands and fight against despair, evolving during an Ubers match and could help Ubers as a whole to evolve. As he says himself, in this game he has the potential to become a rare card and for him to get to a new level. Before going into the way I see this happening, we have to look at a certain thing, the callbacks to the U20 match. If we take Kaiser's goal, for example, we see that it is strikingly similar to Barrow's goal in the U20 match. Isagi gets past everyone but a metavision user comes from his blind spot, destroying his entire play, but as Isagi is about to use his weapon to beat him, the metavision user beats Isagi by going for a weakness of his weapon. For Sai it was core stability and for Aiku the lack of technique. Then a character comes from the sides to get a pass from Isagi, though said character is also marked by someone. While all of this is happening, we get a person bursting through in the middle and scoring off of the pass that was about to go through. The other thing is related to Gagamaru. Here we get Gagamaru fighting against a certain player who had his options limited. For Shido it was Ryo through his physicality, and for Barrow it's Isagi thanks to his football IQ. Then the striker fakes his trajectory thanks to a certain move. For Shido the ball had a trajectory that went down then up, and for Barrow it was a chop dribble then a predator eyes move using blind spots. But still Gagamaru thanks to his reflexes stopped both balls. Now where does this lead us? Into the most important scene for the U20 match in my opinion. The moment Isagi doesn't accept Ego Jinpachi telling them that it's enough. They have fought enough, and while they may despair at the situation, that isn't the end for them. Though what does Isagi do? He rejects that idea. Instead of dreams hoping, he fights for the despair and doubles down. You shitty 4 eyes make us win this match. And I could see a callback to this scene once again with Niko this time acting as Isagi, especially with the fact that Niko is really similar to Snuffy the same way Isagi is to Ego. When Snuffy goes out of the field and tells everyone that this is enough, Niko tells him to make them win. Fighting through despair as he already did, and with this speech not only would Ubers awaken but also Snuffy, showing that his Phoenix aura isn't just for show. Especially when we count the fact that one of the Nail's goals is to show us the future threats Isagi will have to face in the final World Cup. So having Snuffy being thrown out of the story after this much development doesn't make that much sense. As Chris Prince says, see you at the World Cup. So having Snuffy being relegated to a simple coach wouldn't feel that correct. Though as said earlier, if we do get a callback to Isagi forcing Ego to make the Blue Lock 11 win, what could happen afterwards? The villain king comes on the field and throws the whole field into disarray, getting the score tied for the Blue Lock 11. And so at this time, it may be Ubers. Now, I don't think that Barrow will necessarily go back to his villain persona, but at least a bit into it. So for chapter 226, we know that the title is Letter of Resignation. So while we don't know who it is about, we may get Niko resigning and so giving a new birth to Ubers. Just like how Isagi is a character who is said to have people awaken, Niko, while following his ego, may be able to do the same. His brain and vision evolving, a rare card in the becoming, two sides of the same coin, people unafraid to change and because of that able to trigger others to evolve. The new rare cards of Japanese football able to make a field evolve by their sheer perseverance. And with this, we've reached the end of the theory. While Niko may not score, I'm sure that he will become the piece that will trigger Uber's new development and hopefully help Barrow unleash himself from his current cage. If you want to argue about this theory or have any feedback to give, tell me so in my Discord server, it would be a pleasure to discuss with you and others. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great one, fellow egoists.